Okay, time for a presentation on the Madagascar leaf-nosed snake. So my name is Jaden Rusnak, and this is Dynasties. Say hi, Dynasties. And he is my ball python. He's gonna be helping me present today on these cool critters. So I picked these snakes based on the look. I think I looked up the coolest snakes, and this was like number 56 on the list. I thought these guys look pretty cool. They're from Madagascar. I like how they have, sexual dimorphism between, males and females, and that's kind of why I picked them. So hopefully it make a pretty interesting topic. Oh man. So, to start off with taxonomy, the scientific name of the Madagascar leaf-nosed snake is, I'm sorry I mess up all these scientific names, Langaha madagascariensis. And these guys were described in 1790 by a Pierre Joseph Bontier. He was a French priest that turned, but not turned into zoologist, but he also studied zoology on the side, kind of like a side hustle, and he was responsible for describing over 200 species of animals throughout Madagascar, with species like birds, all sorts of reptiles, herps, amphibians, and obviously snakes we have here. So they are in the family Pseudo-Exodontidae, and then in the superfamily or the clade Colubroidea. And there's three species within this genus of Langaha. We have Langaha alududia. These guys are known as the southern leaf-nosed snake. It was described in 1901, not by our boy Pierre here, as he is very old at that point. And then we have madagascariensis, which is the this topic of the presentation today. And then we have pseudo-alludia, which is known as the ambilobe. Yeah, ambilobe leaf-nosed snake. I don't know why they got the name ambilobe. I have not done much research on them because there's not that much research really. Those were described in 1988, and that was the least known of the three species here. The most known is the one I'm doing my presentation on because I had the most articles on. And these guys are very cool. And all throughout these three species of the within the genera, they're fairly remains understood. Like they don't know that much about them, not that much about their life history. These guys are somewhat in the pet trade, at least the Madagascariensis is. So let's get on to distribution. So it's in the name Madagascar leaf-nosed snake. They are endemic to Madagascar. The range distribution map on the left is the one I got from iNaturalist. Not as accurate, but it kind of shows, the rated shaded in red areas where you could find these snakes at, especially on, citizen science apps like iNaturalist. Now, the more scientific map on the right there by Rosa et al. 2012 shows the sites that she or he went to. Um, and as you can see, there's not that many sites. Like with crayfish work, we have over 600 sites for a species throughout even just a state. Here we have, I think it's around 20. So not that many sites where these guys are found. But as you can see, they like their lowland habitat areas near the coast and not really in the montane within the mountains of Madagascar. The localities are found ranging from the northern tip of the southern coast of Madagascar, um, or northern tip of the coast, and then down to the southern. So basically, all coast sides of the Madagascar island. And these guys, for a primarily habitat, consist of dry and wet forest at low elevations, which I'll talk to in the next slide. So, like I said, these guys love lowland deciduous dry forests and then also rainforests. I think up north I'd say it's more dry forest. On the east coast of Madagascar would be more the rainforest habitat. The eastern lowland forest comprised of evergreen trees and plants, things like tree ferns, palms, a bunch of species of bamboo, and that's what's listed here in the picture on the right is perfect rainforest habitat. They like their closed canopy, so basically, the canopy is, doesn't let that much sunlight in. They um, occupy in the northern parts of their range. The deciduous dry forest are one of the most biodiverse places on Earth, even though it is somewhat more dry than the rest of the rainforest throughout the island. And in this place, there's plenty of endemic mammals, amphibians, and plants. Because, mainly they're on Madagascar as an island, so the speciation rate and the biodiversity is much higher on the island than the main continent. Approximately 70% of the annual precipitation falls during the wet season, which is from November through May. So approximately to probably like half of the year, 70% of the rain that these areas get fall during the wet season and the dry season, not so much. So these guys are more active during the wet season. That's when they reproduce. That's when they are hunting. That's when the other animals are reproducing. So it's much easier to get prey. Just to cover some general information on these leaf-nosed snakes, they have long, slender body plans, quite the opposite of this guy, the ball python, where the ball python is chunky and fat. Even though they're both ambush predators, leaf-nosed snakes very long and lanky, uh, kind of like a Baron's racers that we have in Zeusai. These guys have cryptic coloration, much like the natural state of the ball python is not a natural color for the ball python. I got a morph, unfortunately. Didn't hear that. These guys have two different colorations depending on what sex they are. So they're sexually dimorphic. The males here you can see, um, or the females have a more cryptic brown, while the males are more reddish brown, so a little brightly more colored with a yellow belly. They are venomous, so they're rear fanged. Din here is not rear fanged, but just like the Baron's racers, their rear fanged venom is especially potent towards their prey choice, which is amphibians and frogs, and not so much towards humans, which I'll talk about later in the PowerPoint. And some studies note that they sway in the wind like other species of, let's say, vine snakes, where they kind of act like a swinging branch in the wind so that predators may not see them or their prey type don't see them creeping up on them. Sometimes they are known to creep towards prey items, especially when they miss them. And they are so cryptically colored and camouflaged that, and oftentimes, after missing a, let's say, house gecko, they can sneak up on that gecko and, perform the killing strike and eat them. Leaf-nosed snakes are predominantly diurnal, so they're most active during the day. At night, not so much. And to talk a little bit about the sexual dimorphism of this particular species. So, like I said earlier, the males are a reddish brown. They have a pointed nasal extension that is tapered at the end, while the females are more cryptically colored. And oftentimes, with sexually dimorphic animals, the males are brightly colored to attract the females. It's not proven with these snakes. And the females are cryptically colored so that they can contribute to the recruitment rates and have less predation pressure. They have a different nasal extension where it's more leaf-like than the males. That's kind of where they get the name from, the leaf-nosed snake. And so their diet and hunting strategies, like I said earlier, they like to eat predominantly geckos, amphibians, frogs, and their venom is very effective at killing the small harps very fast. So within seconds of getting bit, the prey item is neutralized, paralyzed, doesn't move. And they are like I said earlier, an ambush predator. So they spend 90% of their time staying completely still, which I found pretty fascinating that these guys are willing just to spend the whole day sitting on one branch, maybe swaying a couple times, waiting for their chance for a gecko or frog to get close enough for them to strike and get their kill. They are occasionally seen to actually pursue missed prey items, like I said in the last slide, and they are often found pretty low to the ground in the um, understory brush layer of the canopy, the total canopy of 1 to 2 meters off the ground. And they eat things like whip-tailed lizards, southern pygmy skinks, all types of anoles, all types of geckos, and of course frogs. So, are they dangerous to people? Much like a lot of rear-fanged animals, there are some exceptions. They're not that dangerous to people, unless you're allergic to them or have allergic reaction, then it could be life-threatening. But for the most part, they're very docile. They won't attack unless you are really trying to get attacked or you're doing measurements like the guy on the bottom there from the study. This is a whole case study where they monitored this guy for I think 48 hours to see the effects of a bite from the leaf-nosed snake. He did not die or lose any fingers or anything. It was more or less just a throbbing pain, and he slept it off. Bites can cause some painful swelling, some throbbing pain, and in most cases, the pain subsides after 24 hours. And usually, no medical treatment is needed, just a good night's rest. So, reproduction occurs in the rainy seasons. So from I think it was in November to May, where they receive most of their rain, 70%. Females will lay up to 5 to 10 eggs per clutch, so it's not a big clutch size. So you could, I'm not sure on, there's not much research on the reproduction of these snakes, so I'm not sure when they reach sexual maturity, but I assume in 2 years, it would probably be the average for snakes, especially Madagascar and these small body snakes. And an interesting point is it has been noted that these guys lay their eggs in foliage. The eggs are kind of glued together. If you imagine like a glass frog, that's what I would imagine. There's unfortunately no pictures I could find of a clutch of eggs in within the foliage, but I imagine they're clumped together within like a bromeliad where it creates like a natural nest for these eggs within the foliage. So I thought that was interesting. Of course, they are oviparous instead of viviparous, so they don't give live birth, they lay eggs. And then on the bottom picture, you can see some of the juveniles. And one thing, there's a couple of notes from this study. It's pretty old because it's black and white. When the hatchlings hatch out, they weigh they're not very heavy. They're very small bodied and they weigh up to 2 grams, which is very light. I've not measured Din in a while, but he is a lot more than 2 grams. Um, they are self-sufficient immediately after hatching, so they can go out. Most of the time, they're staying still within the foliage. They have these cryptic colors when they're young. Right when they hatch out, they have a curled up, the rostral or the nasal projection is curled up to expose their egg tooth so they can hatch out of the egg. And then eventually, hours after them hatching, they slowly get their long pointed nose. So the baby snake hatching out of the egg on the left in the picture A, you can see the curled up nasal structure. And then on B was hours after they hatched. And you can see there is some diversity in how long some of these projections can be as well. And juves hide from predators by staying on thin branches and trees. They are very thin snakes, very small. Any bird will come around and eat them like a skittle. So these guys do not move on the branches. They're just going to sit there and wait for any very small, also neonate amphibian or a lizard to come by that they could possibly eat. And I didn't see any evidence of parental care from the females with these juveniles or the eggs within the foliage. And another interesting note is the juveniles and the adults are often seen hanging from trees to look what scientists imagine to mimic the seed pods of many of the native trees there. And I'll touch on that a bit in the behavior slide. So what kind of predators will eat these guys? A lot. Anything that can fit a thin snake down their throat, slurp them up like a spaghetti noodle, will eat these snakes. There are some species of mongoose in Madagascar, and everyone knows that mongooses love to eat snakes. Things like birds of prey. So we have the crested serpent eagle on the right, and from their name suggests they also predominantly eat snakes. I couldn't find a picture of any actual predator eating a leaf-nosed snake, unfortunately. So the mongoose on the left there, I don't even think it's a Madagascar mongoose. I think it's just some African mongoose, but you get the picture. There are a lot of animals, especially a lot of mammals, carnivorous mammals, that will eat snakes. And these guys are very small bodied, so it doesn't take a very big predator to eat them. So why would these guys evolve or evolve these adaptations to have a long nose? There are two leading theories from my research on the topic. The first theory is that they use it for camouflage, leaf-nosed snake. So they try to blend in with the canopy cover with the leaves in the area, and this projection kind of helps imitate what a branch with maybe a leaf on the end would look like. Another theory is oh, the nasal projection acts as a point of reference for prey stalking. So the study right here on the right, I forget the name of who wrote it, but they noted that the snake would often place its nasal structure near the base of the neck of the lizard or anole that they fed out to these snakes before they struck. So they suggested that these nasal projections help them with their accuracy in the strikes, and almost all the time they go after the neck of the animal. Like Lofen was saying earlier today, that a lot of the was it diapsids? Yeah, would go after the ringneck snakes, would go after the neck of the salamanders. Much like them, these guys often do the same thing with the anoles and lizards that they predominantly hunt. Studies have shown, well, not much, and obviously there's not that been, as you can see, there's a black and white photo, so there's not that many studies with these snakes, and not a lot of up-to-date studies with these snakes and how they behave and how they fight. So, not it was kind of hard to do research on how these snakes, there's some of the life history aspects of these snakes. There are some convergent evolution, as you can see, there's a lot of species that exhibit nasal projections. I would say not as much as these snakes. These nasal projections are very long, but in I want to say nearby snake, but in Asia there's the vine snakes that also imitate the vines and the vegetation of the area, so they're also very cryptic. Have the same body plan. They're slender, they're long, and they have somewhat of a nasal projection, a tapered snout. I saw this in the Asian vine snakes, which also have different morphologies. They're not, they are sexually dimorphic, but not to the extent of the leaf-nosed snake. So the one on the left is a brown morphology of the Asian vine snake, and the right is a green morphology of them. Obviously, if the canopy cover is full of green foliage, the green morphology of the Asian vine snake is adapted better to be more cryptic and have more camouflage, so they would have less predation pressure and better chances of hunting their prey items. They also like the same diet as a leaf-nosed snake. And then on the left there with the brown one, they blend in more with the dead branches or some of the brown vines within the canopy. But these guys are not related whatsoever to the Madagascar leaf-nosed snakes. But it's just an interesting point to point out that there are some convergent evolution factors within the body plan that leaf-nosed snakes have. So, what are some of the threats? Obviously, everyone knows about the Madagascar slash and burn agricultural techniques. It's widespread throughout the area. Agriculture, they basically burn down the jungle, and so they can plant their crops or have some of the cattle graze the land. And obviously, habitat destruction and degradation it can be a huge impact on these populations of leaf-nosed snakes. And there could be some illegal pet trade implications, as I saw a lot of videos where there is people holding leaf-nosed snakes, and they are a cool pet to keep in herpetoculture. Maybe one day I'll keep one for myself if it's captive bred. I just find it very fascinating, and their morphologies and adaptations are pretty cool. They are listed as least concern, so they're right now they're not very imperiled at the moment. But if these techniques and agricultural slash and burn techniques still go on, obviously habitats could be segregated, so this could lead to genetic bottlenecks and problems with genetic diversity and populations being separated from each other. So there are some implications, some threats towards the Madagascar leaf-nosed snakes and basically all biodiverse animals within Madagascar. To cover some of my fun facts. So fun fact number one, like I said earlier, these guys will hang upside down from trees. And I have some pictures of kind of the hanging seed pods or fruits. The one on the far left with the palm tree is the palm seeds, and the one in the middle, I forget what plant it is, but just to show that when these snakes hang down, they look exactly like the foliage, like a branch or a seed pod, as you can see on the one on the right with the yellow arrow pointing towards the snake. So very cryptic and very good at blending in with the environment so they can creep on their prey or not get swooped up by a giant hawk trying to eat them. And then we have fun fact number two. They are the only terrestrial venomous snake within Madagascar. There are some aquatic snakes. The sea snake on the left there, the beaked sea snake, is very venomous, very dangerous to humans if they were bit. But I thought it was pretty cool that I somehow picked the only venomous snake within Madagascar. Before this, I would have thought there would have been a bunch. I mean, Madagascar is a jungle habitat, so I associate jungle habitats with venomous, highly venomous snakes. You know, in Costa Rica, you have the Bushmasters, and I think there's some lanceheads there. So a lot of venomous snakes there. I was surprised that the this genera of snakes is the only ones that are venomous on the entire island, especially when Africa has so many venomous snakes. And that should be it. Um, I'm used to putting any questions, but obviously no one's here to ask any questions. But I thought it was a really cool stake to research, and I also think it's really cool that there's some such drastic sexual dimorphism between the two snakes. Here on in this picture here is the male, as you can see, very clearly yellow-bellied with this reddish-brown top, while the females look identical to a tree branch. So I think these animals are very cool, very cryptic. I love to learn about the behaviors of animals, especially with whether they have aposematic coloration or their cryptic coloration. So overall, a great presentation. Din says bye, and I got to figure out how to stop recording.